Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting, coming to you today with the next session in the Alpha Wolf Personal Development and Expansion series. So, this episode today is going to be all about understanding emotional trauma and how to let go and release emotional trauma. So, a key thing to understand about emotional trauma is it is an illusion created by our mind and created by our subconscious. So, fight or flight. The more I perceive something to be traumatic, the more traumatic it becomes within me. So, an important thing to understand about dealing with or even working through past emotional trauma is all the stories we create about how bad things are and how much these events or these circumstances or these situations have hurt us. So it's the fear. So emotional trauma is the fear of pain reoccurring, the fear of going through that again. For example, no matter how bad it is, no matter what you've been through, you're still alive. Death is the end. Do you sort of get it? So when I've come through the other side of a traumatic event that I believe is traumatic, I did not falter, I did not fall. Do you sort of get it? I can give the power to that situation and say how much I don't enjoy that situation and how much that situation hurt and how this person did this to me, this person did that to me. But the truth the truth of the matter is that if you're here now, you're on the other side of it. You've been through it, you've done it. Does it hold power over you? Is it something that is going to reoccur? So we understand that emotional trauma is the fear of that emotional uncertainty or that event reoccurring and rehappening. Now, emotional trauma or trauma in general can be linked to manipulation, can be linked to physical abuse, can be linked to psychological abuse, can be linked to emotional abuse. These words I'm saying don't hold any weight because it's only the weight I give them. So, should I want to see someone trying to emotionally manipulate me as the worst thing in the world and how it tore me apart and how it destroyed me? I'm free to do that. Should I want to see emotional manipulation as someone trying to play with my emotions? Does it really hold any power over you? Do you sort of get it? The power is up here in our mind to create the hell that we experience in life. Heaven and hell doesn't exist outside of the mind. In life, there is no heaven, there is no hell. You could argue that in nature, there's trauma, that a deer running from a pack of wolves is scared beyond belief and in trauma. A funny thing is that you notice in nature when animals go through what we would perceive to be highly traumatic situations, like they're not reliving it or reoccurring it. Now, this isn't to say the evolutionary side of our brain, which is it's both of our brains, but the subconscious is where all of our instincts, all of our fears live. And all our fears are evolutionary traits of avoiding danger, of avoiding what we don't want in life. So it's to say that, a deer doesn't walk around and feel bad about themselves because a pack of wolves yesterday tried to eat it and tried to kill it. And oh my God, these wolves are so mean. These wolves are going to come and get me. They're going to come and get me. A deer is just reacting to the environmental stimuli. Should there be predators around, a deer is, you know, reacting to those predators. Should there be no predators around, a deer isn't reliving the interactions with those predators. So when it comes to emotional trauma and trauma in general, we are the ones that are creating the process or the reliving of that event, the reliving of that trauma. We are creating the fear from that trauma. So it's an important thing to understand that should you want to be considered weak in life in terms of being powerless against your fears, being powerless against what you see as negative, you are free to do that. Should you want to be considered strong in life, someone that regardless of any fear or anything like that, nothing holds power over you because only you hold power over you. Do you sort of see? It's not that someone else is determining if you're strong, if you're weak. What it means is, am I a victim to the environments that I'm in, or are the environments dictated by who I am? So it's very important to understand this because we all have emotional trauma because emotional trauma isn't based in reality. Not to say that the events that create the emotional trauma aren't based in reality, but the emotional trauma that we feel isn't based in reality. It's based in our subconscious mind, not our conscious mind. Our conscious mind is the part that understands logic, reason, all of this. So we've just got to understand when we're trying to let go and release that and stop giving it, so to speak, the power over us, what we have to do is realize that it's not that bad. For example, it's like this with any fears. I used to have a phobia of spiders, big fear of spiders. Whenever I saw a spider, it caused me to become petrified because of emotional trauma that I had growing up, where I had large huntsmen either run up my pants, run down my shirt. Maybe I was laying in bed. One time I was laying in bed under the dunes in winter and I was moving my foot around and then, oh, there's a massive huntsman on my foot now. Do you sort of get it? It caused an unrealistic fear within me that every time I saw a spider, the spider would try to jump on me, would try to crawl on me, would attack me. So we understand that this isn't reality, that, you know, so to speak, a huntsman spider, it's not that scary. It's more scared of you than you are of it. Just to the same. Predatory people in life are more scared of you than you are of them. Do you sort of get it? If I run at a pack of wolves with 2 axes in my hands ready to do battle, do you think they're going to run at me or do you think they're going to run away? Do you sort of get it? Like predators have specific patterns in their mind where they look for weakness and they avoid strength. So should you charge at a predator holding 2 battle axes in your hand, screaming bloody murder, they will not charge you. They will run from you, for you are not prey. Do you sort of get it? So an important thing I had to learn was to rewire the thought process, especially with spiders, to overcome that fear. And how I did this was realizing 2 things. One, if I see a spider and it runs at me, I create a safe distance. Should it come within a meter of me, I just stomp on it. Like, do you really think a spider is stronger than my boot? I can put out over 100, 200 kilos with my legs of pressure. Like, do you sort of get it? Like, that spider doesn't hold any power over me. But the other realization is that we have to put ourselves in, reintroduce ourselves into these negative events and situations and sit in them and expose ourselves to what creates fear within us. Now, this is not to say that we go into negative environments and let people misuse us. We do not allow that. For what I allow in my life, I am telling myself is my life. So should I allow people to talk down to me? I am saying that is acceptable behavior. Should I not allow people to talk down to me? Every time someone talks down to me, I tell them, that is not the path you want to choose. That is not the path you want to walk. For in the past, I may have accepted it, but I do not accept it now. So an important thing to understand is that, like, you and me are completely in control of our environments. Should someone talk down to me, I can stay in that environment. I can leave that environment. I can headbutt them and kick their teeth in. Which path do we choose? Which path do we want to choose? Do we want to always have to respond to negative emotions with violence? Do we always want to respond to negative emotions by repressing them? Or do we want to accept the negative emotion and assess the environment and identify why we are feeling that negative emotion? So should people talk down to me? That's cool. Like, do you sort of get it? Like, I can see the actions that they take as being something that they're doing to me. They're talking down to me. Or I can realize their opinion doesn't really mean shit. What they think and feel doesn't really bother me. It's nothing to do with me. And I can choose, does this environment add to my life or does it not add to my life? And if I realize it doesn't add to my life, I simply walk away. There is nothing more. I don't have to convince them and change them. I simply just let go. So to understand this in a metaphor, if we see personal relationships like co-driving a car, we both have one hand on the steering wheel and we are driving downtown. Should you take your hand off the steering wheel and start punching me, I will let go of the steering wheel as well. And I will let us veer into a tree. Do you sort of get it? Like, a relationship is a two-way street. Either we're both investing into it, or if you're not investing into it and I am investing into it, I'm not getting a good deal. Why would I invest into it? Do you sort of understand? The emotional trauma we feel, so when it's emotional trauma, not physical trauma or psychological trauma, so they're all slightly different. Emotional trauma is based on trauma in the feelings. Psychological trauma is based on trauma that is in the conscious mind. Should I sit there and say things to you and twist your mind and manipulate you? That is psychological trauma. Should I play on your emotions and make you overreact and become mentally or emotionally unstable and angry? And should I make you do all this different stuff, become sad, become, aggressive, become, fearful? That's emotional trauma. Physical trauma, should I walk up and punch you in the face? Should I use my power over you, my physical strength? So we understand that while they are all slightly different in the manifestation that they appear in, they are all rooted out of the same things. Trauma is the perception of fear. Do I fear people messing with my mind, creating illusions, making it so I don't know which way is up and which way is down? Do I fear people using my emotions against me, triggering me into anger, getting me to act irrationally outside of who I want to be? Should I fear someone attacking me physically? I create trauma around this. So to understand this trauma is simply to understand that trauma is a descriptive word. It doesn't hold any meaning. It is a word we use to describe fear. Do you sort of get it? I'm afraid. I was in, so to speak, we could use domestic violence. Like, I'm afraid of being assaulted and all of that. Or we get someone in. But yeah, so with emotional trauma, when we're trying to work through it, we realize that trauma equals fear. So should I fear what I am going through? Should I fear the environment that I am experiencing? Should I fear the circumstances or events I've been through? I create trauma because I'm trying to avoid it. So I amplify that fear so that I don't have to go through it again. Hello, Nico. But yeah, so when we come into this and we're trying to understand what our traumas are, and then we're trying to work through our traumas to let go to the trauma that we've experienced, it is a simple process of identifying what causes me fear in life. I can either avoid or I can move towards. Should I choose to move towards what I fear in life? One sec. Okay. So should I choose that I want to let go to what I fear as being like my fear. So for example, with spiders, with my arachnophobia, I simply allowed myself to sit in rooms that were full of spiders. Every time I saw a spider, I just sat with it and I observed it. And I reprogrammed the narrative from the spider is going to try and attack me to now I am observing the movements of the spider and does it try to attack me? Is it going to try and crawl on me? And we are rewiring that brain or our brain. We are rewiring our subconscious through experience. So part of it is through the logic of the language, and part of it is through the experiences that we have. How's it going, Nick?
Hey, buddy.
Oh,
Doing
that's
very
awesome.
well. Doing very well. Finally got to get to one of your sessions, which is great.
Oh,
I don't know if my, I
awesome.
don't know if my camera's working or not, but
No, no, it is.
oh, sweet.
That's
The
awesome.
yeah, no, I've been following you, but my work schedules have not been able to get me in here. But it's very interesting what you're talking about because um, literally just did that about a month ago.
Yeah,
Arachnophobia. I
yeah,
had spiders. I had three spiders here, and I
yeah.
just sat with them and started talking to them. It was
And
like
how did you find it?
I found it like, well, if I go back a little more,
Yeah,
I had a spider that was basically antagonizing me a few years ago before I got into anything spiritual, even thought any
yeah,
deeper than what was 3D. And I just remember this spider, I'd sort of look at it and it'd run at me. And I didn't want to hurt it, but I was scared of it. So I'd
yeah,
move and
yeah,
I'd, whatever. Come to a few weeks ago and I'm sitting here and I haven't really seen that many spiders, but all of a sudden there's a few of them here and it just made me think there must be something to this. So I just sat here with them and I let them come, I let them move around, and they just went on their merry way. And so
Yeah.
I don't hurt them, they don't hurt me. We're all friends. It's the
E-
circle of life.
Exactly. That was the same realization that I had was I was so fearful of the spiders coming on me and crawling on me and biting me that every time I saw one, I had to focus in on it, all of my
Yeah,
attention. And what I realized is the more I let go to that need to focus in on them, the more it sort of, I just like became more calm.
definitely. And
And
I find that
the,
with
mm,
everything.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's how it works with all of our fears. Because essentially, with our fears, our brain is wired to focus in on our fears and to focus in on what we don't want. But the more I
Very
focus on
much.
it, the more I will sort of like amplify it. And then when we get into the spiritual side of it, like what I focus in on life, it's sort of like I'm attracting that to me as well.
And I believe it is true. I've had a pretty tumultuous, traumatic roller coaster of a life with many
Mm,
events to it. And I can say that the science is in the pudding when you sit there and you basically if you sit and shit, the
mm,
smell the smell goes away after a while.
exactly.
If you sit in a depressive state, that takes over. And it's about changing it up and exactly as you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because that's what I found. Like another thing is that there are sort of like our psychological responses, and then there are physical responses. So, like
Correct.
for example, I had oh, I probably still have like light PTSD, but it's like when I would go out in public, I would start to have physical responses where my body would become more tense and agitated and sort of like that would lead to triggering thought patterns. Because if we think about it like this, it's the association between the environmental stimuli or our internal stimuli, and then the narratives and the meaning that we put to it. So like
Yep.
if I'm always feeling like out in public that I'm tense, I'll always sort of associate like aggression and things like that to it. So
I have to
mm,
agree. Yeah. I have
yeah.
to agree. But I feel like in a sense there's been like a wave of that of
Mm,
humankind and human evolution in a sense that like
yeah.
a lot of us didn't feel that way at a certain time. And
No.
then as time progressed, like I'm going through something at the moment where my GP believes I've got ADHD and autism. Well, you can
Yeah,
put
yeah, yeah.
whatever labels you want on it,
Yeah.
but that's just me and that's the way that I function.
Yeah.
Now, I look at some of that as a real positive thing. So I've always looked
Hmm.
at my ADHD as a superpower.
Yeah, it is.
But you also, as a GP said, you've used this superpower so much that you've kind of broken a few of the rhythms and the things in your mind. So coming back to like what you're saying, this is where I
Mm,
found spirituality to help a lot. The
mm,
calming of the mind and sitting with things and
mm.
going further than what um, the 3D medical world say.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot more to it. So like
Mm.
a lot of my depression and anxiety was healed from spiritual. I've been on
Yeah.
every drug you can think of.
Hmm.
But this is why I do a lot of this as well because
Yeah.
I've been on every drug you can think of. I've been to psychiatrists.
Yeah.
I've been to hospitals, all of that, and nobody could help me. They all thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy.
No.
I'm very sane. I'm actually more
Yeah.
sane than most people, like you.
Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly.
people would look at us and just label us crazy or whatever they want, unstable or whatever they want to call us.
Yeah.
Not realizing that we're actually much more stable and connected to a much bigger picture that other
Mm.
people aren't. And so it when you bring it back to spider, as simple as
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
it really is as simple as that. And people think
Yeah.
it's this big um even in my journey, I've found, oh, it's so overwhelming. There's so many parts. It's really
Mm.
not. It's just about being
Exactly.
like you and
And
I sitting here having this conversation.
Mm.
it was going to happen regardless.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? The universe was going to make that happen, and it has.
Yeah. So with the spiritual, because I love getting into this, but it's sort
It
of
now.
like when we think about the spiritual, I'm always drawn back to how life used to be, like in ancient times. And especially with myself with ADHD, like I didn't like the drugs, so I had to like sort of learn how to control my impulse control and all of that.
Yeah,
But a funny thing I realized was that with it, it's not so much that it's any sort of difference between other people. It's just our brains are wired differently for different purposes. So like when we were hunter-gatherers or out in the wilderness, it's
that
sort of
one.
like with ADHD, it's like if anything in my periphery moves, I have to
Yeah.
look at it.
Yep.
So so it's not that I can't focus or I don't have attention. It's that as soon as there's movement or something happen, I have to give it attention until I deem it to be, so to speak, safe or until I understand what's happening. And it's sort of like in the ancient times, this was very, very useful because if there was movement, and let's say it was a tiger, it's sort of like if we just look over there and go, there's nothing there, then we get eaten
Are
as
you
a
in my
group.
head?
Yeah.
This is exactly how I think about it. I'm just like, well, yeah, back in the day, exactly right. Hunter and
Mm.
gatherers. This would have been a superpower,
Yeah.
not
Oh, it
a.
even is today because it
I
allows
believe it
us
is.
it allows us to look at the whole picture and then certain things will jump out to us. So I have
But
I
do
have ADHD and dyslexia, and it's sort of like with the dyslexia, how I think and speak is sometimes backwards
hmm
and things like that. But it's sort of like it allows me to see things and reverse engineer things in a much easier way than I believe most other people because it allows me to sort of have to understand each aspect of the like let's say if it's information, if someone's telling me this is how it's done, then I work through and sort of I'm able to see the differences because
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
just in agreement with how it's meant to be done.
No, no, I see that.
Yeah.
And then on that whole
Mm.
topic, don't you think that a lot of the people that are spiritual
Hmm.
are on some sort of a spectrum? So everybody I come into contact
Mm.
with that believes or is spiritual or practices,
Mm.
they always come with a side note of, you know, ADHD or
Yeah.
autism or this or that. And so to me, it's almost like we're here to lead the other people and to help the other people and
Yeah.
to show and explain. And like, if it wasn't like you say, if it wasn't for the people like us, I mean, we live in a world now which is boxes and
Oh
boxes and
yeah.
work, and it's been created that way. We know that, and those walls, those pillars are coming down. I'm assuming you are aware of
Yeah,
what we
yeah,
call
yeah.
the four pillars of society. Well, they're all falling down around us. We can see that clearly. The
Oh
church is
yeah.
falling, the money's falling, the governments are falling. So it's not going to be long until we start to take
Yeah.
over and
And do
rise
you
up
think
again.
do you think with what you're saying there, do you think it's part
Mm,
that like we all have this compulsion to be a part of the herd and to be a part of the group, yet a lot of people with ADHD, with all these different sort of how I think of them is they're just different wirings of the brain. And it's sort of like I'm okay being ostracized and outside of the group and sort of exploring on my own. Like, do you think it's sort of like that?
I think it is, and I think also what it is that there's a few parts to it.
Hmm.
And while I say this, I've got 888 up on my screen, so that's quite.
Yeah.
I'm very angel number orientated as well. Um,
Yeah.
the way I see it is that 50 years ago we didn't have the internet. People didn't
Hmm.
speak to each other. People were in small groups, and those groups
Mm.
would do what they did in their little groups. So if one person thought, playing cricket was cool, everybody would play cricket. They'd have a
Yeah.
cricket team, and so on and so forth. we now have the internet, and
Mm.
something I when I was younger, I
Hmm.
call, I call it before spirituality and after spirituality. But before
Yeah, yeah,
spirituality, everything was so literal. So I had to look
yeah.
at everything so literal, And so people would say, oh, the world is going to change and the pillars are going to fall. And I would believe it in my heart. My heart would
Hmm.
believe it. My chakras would believe it.
Yeah,
But there was something in my head that would be like, nah, what do you mean? I mean, that how are they going to fall? Who's
yeah,
falling? But it's more when after spirituality, I see it now. It's all very, some things are figurative and some
yeah,
things are literal and some things are beyond things that we even understand,
yeah,
like, so before I used to go, yeah, there's no way that the four pillars of society are going to fall. And there's no way that the world will go against the government. But we're
yeah.
seeing that literally happen because of the internet. The
Mm.
internet is something that, years ago we spoke about, oh, there's going to be a great something that connects us all. There's something that's going to connect us. And nobody knew what
Yeah.
it was. And now all of a sudden we have the internet,
Oh, yeah.
and there's a lot of crap out there that's happening and a lot of widespread bullshit. But for the real
Mm.
people like you and I mean, you and I
Hmm.
would have never met without the internet.
No,
You and I would have never
exactly.
conversed without the internet. And I've got friends all over Australia, like my friend
Hmm.
Matthew, I was saying,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
who's up in Queensland. He's one of my best friends now. We talk every day, and if
Yeah,
we don't check in on each other spiritually, we worry about each other. And now we're almost at a point where we're starting to pray for the world as opposed to ourselves, and
yeah.
do things for the greater good. So
Hmm.
I look at all of that, the internet, and the way things have moved, and this so-called ADHD. Look,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm 40 years old. So at 23, I went to a doctor and I said, I think I've got ADHD. And he
Yeah.
said, I think you need a holiday.
Yeah,
So
right.
17 years ago in Western
Yeah.
Australia, they wouldn't even consider ADHD unless you were literally this manic, crazy
Yeah.
person. Now I have a GP telling me you have ADHD and
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
got burnout. That's why you're so tired. So I've gone in a space of 20 years from having the old school way of
Hmm.
society and thinking, which is you have these few bosses and they tell everybody what to do,
Yeah.
to now you can't tell people what to do. People will
No,
do what they want.
exactly.
They have to somehow be in those pillars of society, but they're doing it on their own terms. Like
Mm.
I was watching a TikTok before, there's a new trend that's coming out, which is no by 25. Well, that's going to screw a lot of people over and a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
businesses over. I mean, I'm already doing that. I don't buy anything that I don't need anyway. And that's, I think,
No.
a spirit. Most
I
spiritual
think
people
I
don't
think
buy.
that's one thing coming back from that material need,
Yeah,
to where it's sort of like, what do I actually need in life? Because I
definitely.
used to be very, very materialistic and
We
like,
all, we, we all were,
yeah,
it's how
because
we're brought up.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And a funny thing for me was the spiritual aspect was trying to understand sort of like life and the connection between life. And sort of a fun thing that I've realized is how quantum theory and quantum mechanics is really proving a lot about consciousness.
Yes,
And it's
yes,
sort of like
very much so.
with your mate in Queensland, have you ever sort of felt like the connection through thought, just through
We
like,
we we have connections through a lot of things. So
yeah.
yesterday, for example, I rang him and I was like, his wife girlfriend's pregnant. And I was like,
Hmm.
Mads has got major she's got major indigestion. Tell her to
Yeah.
stop stressing about whatever she's stressing about. And she's like, what the fuck, Nico? How do you know that? I'm like, just I know. Like, so my friend Matthew and my friend
Hmm.
Rachel, we're like we sort of we all met very early on in our spiritual journeys,
Yeah.
and all three of us kind of we know when something's up with the other one,
Hmm.
and from that, our collective has started to grow a bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'd love to introduce you to these guys because
Oh
I think
man, that'd be
you'd
awesome.
love all of them. Some of them are a little bit more sort of TikTok orientated, but their
Hmm.
true core is what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Some
yeah.
of them are just doing what we do. But I've got, there's another lady, Sophia, who I'm becoming very close with now, and her
Hmm.
and I are starting to get that connection. So much so that I said to her last night, sent her a text last night, I said, "What's going on? There's something bad going on." She's like, "Yeah, I'm on live and there's this woman and she's got bad energy and da da da." And it was so crazy that I was able to pick up on that, and I'm starting to pick
Yeah.
up on more and more. But it's even with like I'll go back to saying about like
Hmm.
before before spirituality and after spirituality, even now I'm starting to think less and just be more.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm hearing everything. I
Mm.
just don't think anymore. I
And
just
and that sort
be
of and that sort of opens you up because you're not trying to
massively.
like focus in on it. Did you just
It, it,
with the energy,
mm,
did you find before spirituality that you could still feel energy?
100%. I would walk in a room and I go, I don't like that person. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
and I
yeah.
and for some reason I would tell you I couldn't tell you why. Now I
Yeah.
can tell you why.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but before I was always like that. And even so I'm a hairdresser, have
Yeah,
been for
yeah.
20 years, and I've got clients that I've had since day one. And
Yeah.
they will say to me now, I've told them now, I've found
Mm.
my psychic power and blah, blah, blah. And they said, you were always a psychic. You said to me, I was having a baby, and then 3 weeks later, I had a pregnancy test, or my baby was going to be a girl, or I was going to
Hmm.
get a job. And I would know these things, but I wouldn't know them.
Yeah.
I'll actually, what actually happened is
Mm.
I, at that 22, 23 age,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
started to
Yeah.
awaken. And then I partied a lot. I took a lot of drugs. So when
Yeah,
you're doing
yeah.
those sorts of things, you get broken down. And then in my early 30s, I met my ex.
Yeah. Hmm.
This guy was a fucking nutcase,
Yeah, yeah.
a psychopath, absolutely ruined me. But the interesting part about this is my awakening came after seeing a healer because his father, my ex-father-in-law,
Hmm.
died on my birthday and
Oh.
attached himself to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually attached himself to me because he was part of the dark side of
Hmm.
spirituality, and he could see that I was
Positive.
a positive. So he actually attached himself to my back and
Yeah.
had his. He was like an octopus, and he had his arm here,
Yeah.
and he had another one here, another one here, and another one here. Right.
Ah. So he was trying to block your chakras.
So I went and had this healing done with this person who I sought
Mm.
out, and the first healing I had done, she healed me, and I woke up. Um, have you ever seen the TV show Stranger Things?
Yeah.
You know the upside down world?
Yeah, yeah.
The only way I can explain it is my world got so bad it was the upside down world, and I woke
Hmm.
up the next day and it came back to normal.
Yeah, right.
That's it was like going from the beach in the sun to like a rainforest, and it was day and night. And so
Yeah.
from there, I just awoken and I could hear things and see things and feel things and smell things. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then I got really sick with COVID. And after COVID, it was like a release.
Yeah.
And from there was no stopping me. I was playing with tarot cards. I was reading up about shamanism, which is
Yeah, yeah.
where I am, which is my
Yeah.
path. And that was like maybe 2 years ago. And so from
Hmm.
there, it's just been a growth and a growth and a growth. So that in between stage,
Hmm.
I I feel like I was walking around with my eyes closed.
Yeah.
But pre that, I could within a blink of an eye know what was going on.
Hmm.
But that sort of 7 years or 8 years, if I
Yeah.
look back now, it was like darkness. It was like I was walking in like a corridor of darkness. I couldn't
Yeah.
see, feel, and the only time anything would penetrate it if it was absolutely massively heavy.
Yeah.
Now, if I think back, there's three things I remember.
Hmm.
One guy that I know is a pedophile. I met him through someone else, and I just got a
Yeah.
bad feeling about him.
Yeah.
Turns out he ended up in jail.
Hmm.
Another guy, um, I just had a bad feeling about him. Turns out he was a really bad guy.
Yeah.
And the third one was my ex-father-in-law. I saw these really dark rain clouds over him, and
Hmm.
it was almost like it was spitting rain at me. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I don't like that," but I didn't know what it was.
Mm.
Now I sit here and I realize what was going on. He was orchestrating this before he'd even died.
Yeah,
And
right.
apparently, yeah. So then after having that clearing, I went back to the person and she went back in and just to make sure everything was okay.
Mm.
She went in quicker than she came out quicker than she went in. She went white and she goes, I'm not charging you for today. You're too powerful for me to deal with now. I don't know what you've done in the last week, but
Yeah.
I can't be in there with you. You're taking my energy and not in a bad way.
Yeah, yeah,
You're growing so quickly because we've released this now.
yeah.
And I haven't spoken to her since because she's blocked me. So I don't know
Yeah.
if I scared her or what happened when she was in with my inner child, but my inner child must have told her to fuck off. Because I'm a bit
Mm.
of a lone wolf in that sense.
Yeah.
And so once she cleared that first initial thing,
Mm.
it was insane. I have no, and then I can't even explain it. Like I know you understand what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but I can't explain it. And so
It's
even to
it's
this day,
it's hard it's hard bringing it to words, hey? Because a lot
no,
of what you've experienced, so to speak, I've experienced that as well, but slightly different. So like for me, it was always like talking to my ancestors, talking to God. Like
yeah,
the funny thing is why my life with all the negative things I went through, I was always protected because I don't know if it was my higher consciousness, God, or my ancestors, but I would always be told things before they happened. So, like one experience I had was my car. I was crossing a highway and my car stalled on a highway with other cars speeding at 110 kilometers an hour at me. And they were literally about to hit me. And I felt a hand on my shoulder and a voice just said, "It's all good. Like you're going to be fine. Don't stress." And then the car kicked back in seconds before a car would have T-boned me. And it's sort of like I always had these experiences where I call it my ancestors or God would tell me exactly when to move and what to do. And it was all through like feelings in my chest, in my
yeah.
heart, where I just feel like this is
The
the
back of her
direction
shoulder,
to
yeah.
go. Yeah,
I've literally that car story, I've
yeah,
had that happen to me as well.
yeah,
Literally, like verbatim. If you
yeah,
had it, if I had told you my story, I would have told you the exact same words. On a
yeah,
hill, car stalled, car's going 100 Ks, and something said to me, "It's going to be okay," and then the car kicked in.
yeah.
What the fuck?
Exactly. And it's sort of
But
like
yeah,
I always had these experiences all throughout my life. So like I
but
remember,
you couldn't, we couldn't we couldn't put answer to them because they didn't fit in the box of what we were
yeah,
brought up with.
exactly. So like I remember being maybe like 6 or 7 and laying in bed and I had a nightmare and I sort of woke up and I looked over to my door, which was open, and there was two children there, a boy and a girl. And all I felt was like everything was good. And I
Yeah.
call them like I saw sort of like guardian angels and things like that. But it's like even with these experiences that I knew, it was like
Mm,
trying to mold them into the material world or the physical world was so difficult because like I had experienced these things, I know them to be
yeah.
true. And it's sort of like, but I couldn't explain them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I do because yeah, I'm very much, I was like that as a kid. I had to have answers to everything.
Mm,
And if I didn't have answers, it would make me go crazy. But I
yeah.
was very lucky. I was 12,
Hmm.
13 maybe. And I went to my best friend's house,
Hmm.
um, for a sleepover. And we're all asleep. It's about three or four of us.
Mm,
And in the doorway is this little girl standing there,
yeah.
but she's not alive.
Yeah.
And of course, I shit myself. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm come from an
Yeah.
Italian Catholic family. This shit doesn't happen. And anyway, next day, go home. Don't say a word about it. The next
Yeah.
weekend, my mate's like, come over, come and stay over again. And I was like, hell no, no
Yeah.
fucking chance.
Yeah.
I'm good. And he's like, oh shit. I was like, what? What? Oh shit. He's like, oh, you saw it. And I'm like, saw what?
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, he's like, just come to my house this afternoon. So, and I call this my blessing. If it wasn't for
Mm,
this, I wouldn't be here today. So he brings me over to his house and he brings me to his mum's room and he goes, did you see this little girl standing somewhere? And he shows me this big, massive portrait of this 2-year-old girl. And I said, what the fuck is going on?
yeah.
Like I'm 12, 13. I'm like, what the fuck? I've just like a year ago, I've been through massive trauma. My
Mm,
brain's just fucking whatever. And he's like, that's my sister. She died of SIDS and she comes and checks in on us. He died in this house.
wow.
I'm like, what the fuck? His mum,
Mm,
him, and his little brother all
yeah,
confirmed to me that it's okay. Don't be scared. And so I go back there, and of course, this little girl keeps coming back. So from the age of 12, I could see things.
yeah.
Now, I thought I was fucking mad,
Mm,
but at the same time, I was like, no, that was real because those people confirmed it.
yeah,
All
yeah,
of us can't be mad. And so never told anybody about it because I thought I was like, I'd be labeled crazy.
yeah.
But that's always been my fire for everything that I do because I'm like, well,
Mm,
there's the truth, putting in the truth there.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
from there,
Sort of like in Inception, that spinning sort of thing. It's what shows you that you're still in reality.
I almost put myself through hell, like trying to imagine it wasn't real, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. And
yeah.
but the universe wouldn't allow that. That it threw
No,
me all the tests to make sure I knew that this is, you know,
how it is.
yeah,
And
very much so.
how did you feel the first time you saw her when you saw her? Like, was it like you felt like scared, or you felt
I
at
wouldn't say
peace,
scared.
and then the mind sort of was like, what the hell's going on?
I would say the feeling was like I didn't feel scared, but I
Hmm.
didn't feel at peace.
Hmm.
But I think that would be a normal reaction to something you see that you don't have an answer for.
Yeah,
But I didn't feel threatened, if that makes sense. So it wasn't
yeah.
like something I needed to be like, get me the fuck out of here. But because I was such a literal and I am such a literal person at
Mm.
times, I was like, well, I'm not going back there if I don't know what it is.
Yeah, yeah,
Once
yeah.
I knew what it was, I was okay with it. But at the initial, my brain did, I mean, to begin with, I thought I didn't see it
Yeah.
and I never mentioned it.
Mm.
And it wasn't until my friend had said, oh, you've seen my sister.
Yeah, yeah,
So I could have walked away from that situation and never actually known what I saw.
yeah.
But
And it's sort of like it's crazy like that in life, hey?
I
Because
truly, yeah,
mm,
I truly believe that we're put on this earth for a reason. And like,
mm,
I'm assuming like, well, most people in my position, their
hmm,
parents aren't the greatest. They
hmm,
haven't been taught the greatest from their parents and they're learning
yeah,
themselves. They're almost teaching their parents. So we're all in that
mm,
same sort of boat. And I feel like from such a young age, because of the way that our parents were, we were always
mm,
inquisitive. And so
mm,
we just naturally became those sorts of people.
yeah,
A lot. And as a hairdresser, I get a really nice insight to the world. So
mm,
I've got a beautiful client and her
yeah,
husband is very spiritual and sees a lot of things and he won't touch it because he's afraid of it.
yeah,
And so what I'm learning is that that's why there's so many more women that are in this world because
mm,
men are a little bit more afraid than women
yeah,
because they've got to uphold those male
yeah.
stereotypes.
Those stereotypes.
Yeah. And
I
so
find it. Mm,
now that he's gotten older, he's actually started to come into the salon and have a haircut and started to ask me questions
yeah,
because he's now older and he's moved through that, having to prove or whatever it is,
yeah,
ego, gone through the ego stage. He's
mm,
now at a stage where he's like, why not explore it? And so
yeah.
he's asking me,
Exactly.
questions, and I'm just allowing him to sort of come in and have that experience. And I can
Yeah,
see him like starting to like
yeah.
all
The
of the
wheels
things
are
he's been
turning.
through. Yeah, big time. And I love that.
Oh yeah. Did you ever have like conversations with God when you were a child? Like I remember so vividly with like my life's purpose, having a conversation with God when I was 16 and being told that because like my childhood was very not violent, but like, it was very traumatic.
Mm,
And God gave me a choice and he said, you can like I can either give into that trauma and become negative and evil and angry and all of that, or I can take the path of light and fight against that. But he sort of told me that like your life is going to be hell, but it's going to
mm.
feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I do. A lot of my childhood, I don't remember. I don't
Mm,
remember a lot of stuff, but I do remember. I don't remember a conversation, but I remember a time where I knew life wasn't going to be easy.
yeah,
I knew that I also foresaw my future. So I
yeah,
knew that I was going to be with the partner I'm with today.
yeah.
I knew I was going to be with that partner because I didn't want to be with a female and I didn't want to
Hmm.
procreate and have that
Mm,
come into my life and stop my life's work.
yeah,
I didn't quite know how that was going to
yeah,
happen because I was almost homophobic at the time, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
But I knew that that was going to be the case. Um, I knew that life was not going to be easy and I was never going to have one of the biggest things he said is you're never going to have a dollar. You're never going to have money, but you're always going to be okay. And
Yeah.
now at 40, I I should be dead 10 times over. I should have lost three houses,
Yeah.
but I now put my trust in God, in the universe, in whatever
Hmm.
you want to call it, and it brings me what it needs because
Yeah.
I do what is right and what is right comes back to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so going back to that conversation, I can't remember that conversation, but I was brought up in a Catholic world and I
Yeah.
hated the church.
Me
I
too.
hated the church.
Yeah.
So as a child, that was like you brought up in trauma. I was very confused
Yep.
because I had the church that I hated and what it stood for because
Hmm.
I could see straight through it. Like
Yep.
I would walk through the church doors and it would feel like I was walking into Satan's lair.
Yeah.
And but when I'm again another thing, this is where I look at everything in my life as I'm so
Mm.
lucky and grateful. My Pastor Michael, he was an
Hmm.
angel.
Yeah.
Right? So when I was there, he he was the pastor, and I believed his word as gospel.
Yeah.
But I didn't believe anything else that was going on around him.
No.
I've been to that church since for a
Hmm.
friend's daughter's confirmation, whatever.
Yeah.
A totally new congregation, and the place is like slime. I couldn't even sit. I had to stand at the back because I couldn't sit on the chairs because I didn't want to
Mm.
touch anything in there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was like, wow, okay. So what I learned, this is probably about 5 years ago, what I
Mm.
learned was the churches are bad, but
Hmm.
the spirituality is good. And
Yeah.
yes, it's in everything. So there's a lot of priests that are bad,
Oh
but
yeah.
there's good ones.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
good ones. And this one was good. And this one, I believe he subconsciously or, you know, telepathically spoke
Yeah.
to me because I remember him like I don't remember much from my childhood, but he
Yeah.
stands out so clear to me. Like I see him standing there right now at at the altar with the
Yeah.
microphone and as if light is shining off him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would have been about 7 or 8 when I first met him, and that would have been my first beacon of hope, if
Mm.
that makes sense. Like that, it's all gonna be okay. But without it being said, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like it
Yeah.
was like a telepathic, everything's gonna be okay, even though it's really shit.
Well, we do that. So we give off. So Joe Dispenza's studied this, where he's found that our brains actually transmit our thoughts out into the environment and the universe.
Oh,
But it's sort of
definitely.
like with religion, there's a difference between religion and spirituality, I believe. Religion is man-made
Definitely.
structures, and spirituality is one's own connection to God and connection to the universe.
It
And
is.
it's sort of like I grew up Catholic, and
Ah, so
I
you get
just
it.
thought it was so full of shit.
Bullshit. Get
Yeah.
up, get down, get up, get down, drink some wine, have some bread, get up, get down, get up, get down. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Oh, but the big thing was is like these people who were meant to be these like champions of spirituality and of, doing the right thing. Like they didn't walk the talk. They were all
No, they
full of
didn't.
shit. Like for example, take for example, like this was one of my big things with religion is especially with Catholicism, how they say being gay is a sin. It's sort of like, how can that be a sin? Like,
Exactly.
do you know what I mean? It's sort of like
Well, that,
how can that be a sin? Because it's like you're saying that you hate or you want someone to go to hell. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of
well,
like negativity.
it's funny you touch on that topic and
Mm,
childhood and all of that because as a child, like I said, I knew I was going to be with a man.
mm.
But I'm what you would call now, what the kids would call pansexual.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love the person. So I've been with men, I've
Mm,
been with men and women, I've been with a man that was a woman.
hmm
Um, I love the person. So if I fall in love with someone, I fall in love with them,
hmm
not their bits. And
Yeah, yeah.
that's where for me, I had such a confusing time trying to work out like my sexuality because my sexuality was fluid. My sexuality was open to everything and anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it was like sort of like a connection of consciousness.
Correct. And that's where I go, well, I look at that as so much deeper. You know, if I wanted to have a wife and a kids and a family life, that's what I would have done. If I wanted
Yeah.
to have this, I would have done that. It is a choice in a sense.
hmm
Um, but it's also attraction as well. Like I am attracted to certain things and certain types and certain
hmm
whatever, and that is human nature.
Yeah.
But that being said,
hmm
sorry, getting me coffee.
Yeah.
That being said, I actually would consider myself not to be male, but more Hierophant.
hmm
So when we look, I I am a male, biological male,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm no way, shape, or form saying that I feel female, but
Yeah.
I don't fit in the constructive spiritual realms of male.
Of
I have both
masculine.
male, you're masculine, I should say. I
hmm
have both masculine and feminine, and I feel like within my body they're very even. So I
Yeah.
feel like the fluids, you want to call one blue and one
hmm
pink, those are very even in my body, but
Yeah.
I present as a male. So
Yeah.
even though I present as a male, I can come across with very female or feminine
Yeah.
beliefs and attributes.
And
Um,
that's a funny thing because that's like for me one thing I've been working on the last maybe 2 or 3 years is sort of like I was so brought up in like aggression and violence and the masculinity and all of
and
that.
so was I. So it was
Yeah.
very confusing for me because I wasn't that. I was loving and healing and
Yeah.
talking and all of that. Yeah.
And it's sort of like I had to learn how to become more effeminate, to become
Hmm.
more feminine, so that because it's the balance in between us or in
Yep.
us that creates that sort of like mental stability or emotional stability. Because like I used to repress my emotions and I had all this
Yep.
built up anger and all this
Hmm.
rage and all of that. And I had to, it was in letting it go and learning how to let it go that I realized like the feminine aspects of me aren't like negative. Like, because I used to push that away, so to speak, and say like, oh, I'm not feminine. If someone walks up to
Yeah.
me, I'll
Yeah.
just beat them up and all of that. And it's sort of like, but for me, a lot of my like life, I don't know why, but I've always dreamed of like to me, like a great death is to be able to die saving someone. And it's sort of like that was always my calling to basically stand for other people, so to
Yeah,
speak.
right.
Yeah, so it's
That
sort of
that
like,
the willing to for justice.
yeah, but also like, for example, if I see someone attack someone else, like I want them to attack me. Like it's sort of like, because
It's like that.
I've always known my inner strength, and it's sort of like I can, like I'm not the strongest, I'm not the best, but there's one
No, but
thing that I have is
we
that
have the spiritual
ability.
strength.
Yeah, yeah. But it's also that ability that like I can be torn to shreds and I'm good. Because it's sort of like within me,
Yeah.
it's just this understanding that like this physical body isn't everything. And it's wild like that.
But see,
Very,
I was the total opposite. I grew up in a very effeminate world,
yeah,
getting
yeah.
told I was gay, getting told I was this, and so that's what I thought I was.
Mm,
And I had to do the opposite. I actually had to find my masculine.
yeah,
I had to actually find myself and go,
yeah,
I am a man. I like fishing. I like hunting. I like
yeah,
sex. I like all the things that men like, but I'm
yeah,
also like pretty things too. And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay. But growing up in a world like you would understand, if you like
Mm,
pretty things, like I used to like to draw. So, oh, you faggot, you
yeah,
dream
yeah,
draw.
yeah,
Oh, you like music, you fucking gay. And so
yeah,
that's how I grew up. I was, all my big wog Italian cousins, they
yeah,
were like, I was the gay little cousin without
yeah,
before I'd even knew I was gay,
yeah,
because I didn't gel my hair back and I didn't do all the things that they did.
yeah,
Um, and so yeah, like funny how you say you had to bring out that feminine. I had to find that masculine, and it's
yeah.
just about finding that.
And
But
I really think that's the spiritual awakening.
well,
You know what I mean?
talking, it truly
Mm,
is, and I talk about like I was talking about those two friends of mine,
yeah.
and when we come together, it's like we form a completion because Matthew's very much the masculine,
Hmm.
but is open to his feminine.
Yeah.
Rachel is very much the feminine. Like, so Matthew is, we call him Matthew Galactic. He's very much into the intergalactic world.
Yeah.
He's very much into speaking all the different tongues and he's very smart. Like, I can't wait for you two to meet. You two are
Yeah.
just going to be
Yeah.
like a house on fire.
Yeah.
Whereas Rachel is more like the fairy and the motherly like type thing. So
Yeah.
she's like the very much softer side, but then she has that real, like, if you fuck with her or anybody, that masculine comes out.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like I'm a mixture of the both. So when we come together and
Mm,
we do things together, it's very powerful
yeah.
because we've got the male, the female, and the hierophant, and it's all kind of creating this, which I love, and it's just happened naturally and by
Mm,
accident. But it's like we all, if we don't check in on each other, it's like, why haven't we checked in on each other? And why haven't we connected? And it's like
yeah. Yeah.
this, it's something strong. We've all said it's something stronger than all of us that keeps drawing us back to each other. It doesn't matter what comes into our life, we always end up back, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
It's sort
now
of
that's
like
the
that
thing with,
energy resonance.
yeah. So it's, yeah, yeah. I just wanted to, yeah, crazy.
No,
My
no,
mind just
it's
went,
it's it's so good because it's sort of like you were able to see both sides and sort of like if there's all too much masculine, if there's all too much feminine, it's sort of like they butt heads at times. But it's
they
like you're
do.
able to decipher between both of them.
And so, like, even with my partner's very much masculine. So I'm able to
Mm,
see both sides and go, well, I can either fight that with the masculine or I can
yeah.
calm it with the feminine,
Yeah,
which I
yeah,
love,
exactly.
you know? Whereas he'll just go as a bull. And I'm like, yeah, you just bull, do your
Yeah.
thing.
So that's sort of what I was learning when I was sort of the reason I was trying to become more feminine was like or feminine was because it's sort of like the masculine is the pushing life and the feminine is the pulling life. And it's like if we're always pushing, 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 we just steamroll over. So like I
Yeah.
always used to be like that when I was a teenager and things like that, that there was what I thought and that was everything. Like if anyone
Yep.
disagreed, I would just argue until it was my own. So it was like it was really in that understanding that I didn't. feel good about that aspect of always having to be dominant over people.
But it was in your head that you had to be.
Yeah,
I
oh well,
get
it
it.
was
I
just it
get
was
it.
just how I was because like
I
especially
was
when
like
I
that.
was yeah, when I was younger, like there was only my thoughts, like they were
Yeah.
so powerful. And I noticed throughout different forms of relationships, be it intimate relationships or friendships, that I had a tendency to become an overpowering because of my ADHD. Like I'd become so excited and then I'd just be like sort of shouting at people and things like that. And it was in that realization that I didn't always want to overpower people because when we overpower people, we take the light from them and don't give them a chance to truly be themselves.
100%. Do you
Yeah.
think that we, like,
Mm,
you and I are very similar? Do you think that we go through those experiences when we're younger set us up? Like, I look at my life
mm,
and look at all the struggles and I go, there's so many ways that could have gone easier or
mhm.
it could have gone worse.
Yeah.
But everything had a lesson to bring me to here now. So I can
Mm,
only look at the past and what, it's, I truly believe, it's said that we decide what our next lives are going to be.
yeah.
I don't believe. I truly don't believe that. I believe that we say a certain path, but I
Mhm.
do believe that there are greater beings that get involved and
Yeah.
teach us lessons along the way. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
like, I
definitely.
believe that this life here I'm in, I'm here to do greater good, and it's one of my last lives.
Hmm.
But I don't believe that I signed up for all of the fucking negative shit I went
Mm,
through the life. I believe that because this is my point I'm getting to,
mm,
because we've come to this earth and
hmm.
we have consciousness and a which is far beyond many people on this earth,
Mm,
we're already thinking beyond the normal person. So as
mm,
children, as teenagers, we're going, I think this is a black lighter. This is a black lighter. And you're not going
yeah.
to tell me otherwise. Whereas the person next to us who isn't in that conscious state like us,
Nah.
they don't care. They're going, no, it's a blue lighter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas we're
Exactly.
going, no, this is a black lighter because we know it's a black lighter, even though it's presenting as a blue lighter. We know it's a black lighter and we're going to fucking fight
Mm,
to the death. So
mm,
I look back at my life and I go, did I kind of create half of that because I am the way I am because I have these
mm.
gifts? Or did they put all of these lessons in place to teach me I have the gift? I'm still not sure yet.
Well,
But
how I think about it
either
is sort
way,
of
I don't
like,
mind.
mm-mm. No, no, how I think about it is sort of like in everything in life, I've always had the choice to conform, and conforming would
Yes.
always make my life easier. But it's sort of like
Boring.
I feel within myself that like I came here to take the punches, so to speak. Like
Wow, that's
I
like the best. That's such a good. I
mm,
like that. I'm going to steal and use that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
So
came
it's
here to
sort
take the
of
punches. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, because it's sort of like I always felt and knew that like for example, like I used to always have my eyes really open because I was so full of energy. And then
Hmm.
all my teachers used to be like, stop being a fucking sarcastic little fuck. So then I had to bring it down, and when I brought it down, people stopped attacking me. Do
Yeah.
you know what I
And
mean?
then, yeah, I do. I do. Well, this is what my GP calls masking.
Yeah.
And so yeah, no, I do know because going back to when you were talking about like wanting that justice and that's very much
Mm.
what I do. Like I will put myself in front of someone in knowing I could get killed,
Yeah.
but I do it anyway. Like,
Yeah.
like there was a guy out the road running down after a lady with an axe, and I went out after him. Like
Jesus.
I should have called the police, but my first instinct was to go and get the guy with the axe to save the girl.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's just a normal instinct. If it was a
yeah,
girl with an axe running after a guy, I would have done the same thing. It would have been
yeah,
saving that person. Why has this person got an axe? It makes no sense.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but I've had to consciously like break those thoughts and go, no, you need to do things safely. Like you can't just
yeah,
go in with an axe. So like now I have weapons around my house. So
yeah,
everything in my house is a weapon. So if at any
yeah,
time I had to run out of the house, I would just pick up my marble little coffee table in my hand, which is about 150 kilos, and
yeah,
that is going to hurt somebody that comes near me. So I'm
yeah,
protected now, but I'm still going to go out and fight. I'm just doing it the right way. I'm learning how
yeah.
to do all of those things.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's sort of like it's that confronting of not so to speak evil, but of people
no,
doing evil deeds.
well,
Do you know what I mean?
there's a lot of people that see the dark as shiny and they don't
Mm,
realize. And I mean, I'll be honest, I've been there myself. I touched on
hmm.
the dark side myself, and
Yeah,
I'm sure you probably have as well at times,
yeah, yeah.
in your deepest, darkest hour.
Oh
Um,
man.
but I,
So there's
but I,
there's there's two there's I like to think there's two me's. There's like so for all I went through in life, I was thought in my head that I'm destined to go to combat in the military. So I
all right.
realized at a young age, when I was 16, when I was training for the military, that I had to like sort of fracture my psychology into two different identities so that
So you,
one identity could go to hell and sort of like be good there. So I created my subconscious, which is I call the beast. And that's the aspect of me where my eyes sort of shift and change, and then there is no logic or reason. And it's that aspect of me that can push through any amount of pain, can push through anything, doesn't get exhausted and all of this. And I created that. And it's sort of like how I've always lived my life is there's two me's. There's the respectful me and the disrespectful me. Should you disrespect me, you're going to meet the disrespectful me. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean because mine is named Maximus,
Yeah.
and so,
How did you come
um,
up with that name?
Maximus, I came up with that name. Max is a name. I don't have a middle name.
Hmm.
So as a kid, I always wanted a middle name. And
Yeah.
I thought the name Max was cool. And I had an
Yeah.
obsession with Mighty Maxes, the little toys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Max was always a name I used. And then when I was a young fella, I used to go out and go around town. I used to use Max as an alter ego.
Yeah.
So my alter ego was Max, and I was either a firefighter or a policeman or whatever. I wasn't a
Yeah.
hairdresser
Yeah.
because the other side of the hairdressing thing, I actually became a hairdresser to piss off my family because they
Yeah.
went,
Yeah.
"You're gay," and I went, "Okay, I'm going to show you how gay I can really be." I
Yeah.
became a hairdresser. So part of me at 17,
Mm.
getting kicked out of home, was trying to find my identity,
Hmm.
working as a hairdresser with all these gay people and women, really realizing I'm quite a masculine person.
Hmm.
Um, so Max would come out.
Yeah.
And there was times where I was actually in the closet sleeping
Hmm.
with women. So I was living a very gay lifestyle
Hmm.
and hiding the fact I was having relationships with women.
Yeah.
So that was Max. So as I grew older, um, Max is good and evil in a sense. Like you
Hmm.
say,
Yeah.
if that beast comes out, he's gonna fuck you up for good or for evil. You
Yeah.
fuck with it, you fuck with me, I'm gonna fuck with you. And so when I met Peter, my partner, he is very neurotypical and not spiritual.
Yeah.
And from day one, we have a great love, but
Hmm.
have always butt heads. So
Mm.
I became when I would become Max,
Mm.
I would say Max is here. So
Yeah. Yeah.
he knew that it wasn't Nick, that
Mm.
it was something else that Nick couldn't control.
Mm.
And so he could then see when I've been pushed or when something's happened, Max is here and it's not Nick saying or
Yeah.
doing these things. It's something else that is out of Nick's control.
Yeah, because you
It's
let
not to
go to the control.
correct. It's not to say that it's okay. that it's
mm,
happening, but it's to allow, for me, it started off like I said, it started off ABC. And then once I started to really hone in on my brain, I started
mm.
to like decipher, well, that's Nick, that's Max. That's
Yeah,
Nick, that's Max. And now I use it with my close family and friends to go, well, that's Max.
yeah,
You can't stop him. And that's almost like that. Max is almost like that fire, that
yeah,
that fire that we have. So when I need to call on extra things, Max comes in, my fire ignites, and it's that
yeah.
flame's always there. Nick's always got that flame going, but
Mm,
Max is the one that will really kick it into fifth gear, sixth gear,
yeah,
the beast.
exactly. And
And
that's
same
and that's
thing.
the exact same that I sort of came up with.
But
And it's sort of
Max,
like I always used to be afraid of losing control. So like,
yeah,
because when I was like between 4 and 6, I used to be a very, very vicious kid. So
yeah,
like I
right.
knew biting hurt other people. So like if I wanted to hurt you, I'd just start biting the shit out of you. Do you know what I mean? And me and my brother used to fight a lot. And it's sort of like I didn't like that aspect of me.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And it's sort of like
yeah,
I personally I don't like hurting people,
yeah.
but at the same time, like I really, really enjoy violence. Do you know what
Same.
I mean? So it's sort of like
No,
how
I do. Like
yeah.
and it's really refreshing speaking to you because
Mm,
it's like you're in my brain because I will sit there and watch a boxing match and almost get a hard on for it because it's so exciting.
hmm hmm
But I would hate to see two people fight like that in the street because they hate each other.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like it's like I love aggression, I love anger, I love fighting, I love all of that. Like Bruce Lee is to me is
hmm
like one of the most ultimate. Like he's not a human being, he's a god.
Yeah, yeah.
He came to this
He's
earth to show us,
crazy.
and I believe if you look into him deeper, which I'm
Mm.
obsessed with him, but there's a lot of spirituality within him and
Oh
even
yeah.
just his life. If you dedicate your life to just learning him, you will have
hmm
such a better life because his life was nothing about materialistic things or anything like that,
No,
being a movie star. His life was purely about being
a spiritual
the best.
being.
Exactly. And that's how he got to being as fast and as good as he was.
Yeah,
Um,
because no person could do that. Like you have to
mhm.
take yourself beyond what is currently known. Like
Yeah.
how quick he could move and how much power he could create.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And
So
and and
like,
just to give
mm,
that even more context very quickly, Tina Turner went
mm,
through the same thing, got absolutely beaten the shit out of, and came out of that fire blazing and made
hmm
herself Tina Turner at 40 years of age and started a new career. So just those two things, like they're the maxes, they're the beasts, they're the things that we have inside us. But
yeah,
it's how we control them. I know that
yeah,
for me,
yeah,
mine is still a little bit out of control and I need to just tame it a little.
hmm
But once it's tamed, it's yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So I used to be afraid of the beast, and I never wanted to let go of control because for me, I've always had a knowing that as soon as I let go to the anger, like it
Yeah,
will take
it's
over. And
gone.
like, yeah, like I had many times in my life where, like, for example, one time was I was at university and this girl came up to me and was yelling at me, and I was yelling back at her, and I walked off and all of that. And the next day, I get a letter from the police that apparently I had assaulted her. And the funny thing was, is it all ended up being bullshit. But
Yeah.
basically, what she said was that three guys had to hold me down. And I said to the police, I said, look, if I ever lose control, like those three, it would take more than three guys. Why? Because they would be trying to grab me and I'd be trying to snap their neck. Like
Yeah.
I lose control, and all I see is like how to hurt people. Like I just
Yeah.
understand it on a subconscious level. And it's sort of like I
It's
didn't,
almost like you go into a game and it's like
oh man, it's sort of like like for example, I worked at bars and there was a big fight, a brawl, and basically what happened was these three guys ran back inside after they'd been escorted out, And one of them, I ran in after him, and he had one of the other bartenders in a chokehold. So I ran up behind him, got him in a chokehold, and then pulled him back onto this couch. And I was trying to twist his neck and damage the ligaments in his neck. And one of the guys is like, "Don't twist his neck." I'm like, "I'm gonna kill this motherfucker."
Yeah.
Because like
Because
once I lose control, it's like I just have to hurt. Like it's just about
yeah,
hurting people. But I've
and you
always I've
almost black
always
out.
mm,
Yeah. No, I totally get it because yeah, I'm the same. I get that rage that
yeah.
comes over me. That um, and see, it used to scare me. Same thing, and I
Hmm.
held it in for so long
Yeah.
because I was afraid of it because I knew that if I let it out, it would fucking
Oh,
unleash.
yeah.
So now I've learned ways to be able to navigate through it.
Oh
Um,
man.
do you
So
find that?
mm,
So I don't. One thing I don't do is I don't drink. I've never been a drinker. I've never really drunk because I find
mhm.
that if I drink, as soon as I have a drink or two, Max is out of the bag.
Really?
And so
So with
even
alcohol,
as
I found that it had the opposite effect. Alcohol
yeah,
made me placid.
okay,
So like when I used to drink, like you could
this makes
walk
me
up
placid.
and slap me in the face, but it would take 30 minutes before I would react because I was just so at so at peace. But then like as soon so like what I had to do is I knew that happened. So I always had to like because growing up, like and because I had such like violent experiences where I had random guys threatening to stomp my head in the middle of
But
town in the middle of the day, like where I was all alone as a kid. Like what
yeah,
happened was is I had to learn how to become aggressive and angry. So that's why I was always angry because I always had to hold it right below the surface so that if something happened, I would be able to react.
we had to
Because
survive.
yeah, because I just like I'm naturally I'm a non-violent person. Like not to say I'm non-violent, but like I
No, but
don't like
you are.
hurting things. But
I
it's
can tell that in
like
your nature. But you have to
yeah,
also survive. So you have to learn how to survive. It's
yeah,
kill or be killed type of thing. So what are you going to
yeah,
do? Are you going to sit there and get slapped on the face? You will
yeah.
once or twice, but then people like us will get up and go, no, fuck this.
Oh
And
yeah.
we're the ones to be afraid of because we're the ones that are going to come out on top every time.
Yeah, because it's sort of like yeah, like my mind goes to strange places and I've always so my mind's always been in like combat and battle. Like that's all I've ever like sort of thought about and it's sort of like I have visions and I think it's from my ancestors where
Well,
like I have a
I
vision. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's actually a past life.
Yeah, it could be. Like I
But
also think that
I
like
think you were in a. I think you were in a. I think you were major. I think you. Hold on. You were in World War I.
potentially, yeah.
World
I
War One. It wasn't
you know,
World War II. It was World War I. It
yeah.
wasn't. It was very recent. Like as in, like you went through that life and then you came straight back.
Oh yeah.
Like you, and
But
and
like
and you,
I see every war in my mind. I see like
but
my biggest ones are like the ancient times. Oh,
you, yeah, yeah. You could have been in them too, but that you. I'm getting a download here.
mhm.
You were in World War I, and this is why this is going to answer something for you.
Mm.
This is why you feel like you want to be in combat mode all the time because you literally went, you were your life before last one was World War I. I'm pretty sure you were high up. Like your life was breathing war, was like
Yeah.
everything was about war. And you were someone high up, but someone that used to go into battle as well. Like you didn't
Yeah.
you wanted to get your hands dirty even though you didn't have to, right?
Yeah.
That was you. I don't know how you passed, but I don't believe it was connected to the the, the war. Like I believe it was just after. But in
Mm.
that interim, you were like, nah, fuck this. I want to go back and fight again.
Mm.
But what you learned was there was like a spiritual war, and that's what you've come back
Yeah.
to. So this fascination with combat is literally like your last life. Is
Yeah.
you're remembering your last life, and because
Oh,
your third eye is so open, it's almost like some of these feelings that you're feeling are actually things that you felt
yeah.
in another life. Like there
Yeah.
some I would say to you, like some moments you've had in time, you would say that that felt real.
Oh, yeah.
So those
Yeah.
feelings
Like,
you're having, they're true feelings. They are real feelings. They're
mhm.
feelings from the past life. You almost didn't pass over. You kind of just came to Earth and then came back. You didn't
Yeah.
stop. So that's also why you're tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that's yeah. So that might clarify a bit of that war and that
Oh,
fascination, which is awesome.
definitely.
But
Like, I have, like, I have a feeling,
there's
and
okay, they're
like,
done.
and like, so like essentially, like my
Oh,
ancestors were shamans, so to
yeah,
speak. But like, I
definitely.
was always a spiritual warrior. So like a berserker is what I was earlier
Back in
in
ancient
in my
times.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah, throughout life, because like
definitely.
I always have this calling that like, and the reason I focus so much on combat is because that's where it feels like I can finally let go and actually be who I am. But I
Because yeah,
also I never want to like sort of like, because I was always going to go to the military, and the thing that stopped me is that I refuse to kill another person for any validation or justification outside of my own. Like, I'm like a knight of old, I only protect and serve. So like, I'm down for a no-win fight if it
hmm.
means I can get to die protecting someone. And it's sort of like, for me,
But this is yeah,
it's always this vision of like running into and charging alone into the enemy army. Like, that's what like just exhilarates and lights me up. Uh,
maybe that's how you died. Because
mhm.
that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But no, it's I just wanted to stay the spirits wanted me to shed light on that you definitely were in like you were in wars back in like Caesar time and all of that, but
Yeah.
definitely the last life you were very big in the that's why you have that sense of
Yeah.
like and that's why you didn't go to the army this time because you've already been there.
Yeah.
You've
And
already been.
it's sort of like every time I went to go to the army, they always found a reason why I didn't belong there. And I've always
They
sort of like
didn't.
the
Your
masculine and
your
the
your
feminine.
your
Yeah, yeah,
guardians didn't. Your
yeah.
guardians, because your guardians knew, and you didn't realize at the time that you were living feelings from another life. So
Mm,
you were thinking, I want to go to the army, I want to go to the army, I want to go to the army
yeah.
because of that feeling from
Oh,
the life before. But
yeah.
because, and this is where childhood and trauma plays a big part because
Mm,
you didn't get to be a child, just like same with me.
mm,
We don't get that time in childhood like reprogram and reset as
yeah.
such. So you've brought part of that past life into this life,
Mm,
which isn't a bad thing because it gives you like
no.
it's actually given you like some really good skill sets.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
to know where it comes from is really, really
Powerful.
yeah. So
Yeah.
like I would yeah, that's all
And that's sort of like for example, in December before I did the walk, the reason I was going to do the walk when I walked across country was I was actually preparing to go to Ukraine.
yeah, right.
But and like I remember this so clearly, but it's like I had this choice. In one hand, I can become death and destruction, and I can do that, or I can become the light. So I was always looking to give an oath to someone. So I wanted to either give an oath to king and country or to businesses or whatever I did. And I realized in it, like, if I go down that route of death and destruction, it's only going to destroy me from the inside. So I chose.
Yeah.
that my one oath is to God, the universe. I fight and die for God. Do you know what I mean? So like
Ding. Yep, I do. I do.
instead of
I do.
violence and things like that, like I can withstand any storm. So
We
that's
use
been
whatever means is necessary for the greater good.
yeah, but it's sort of like no one gets my allegiance but God, and I am going to do whatever is like deemed right, regardless of anything. Do
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right. I do know what you mean because
Yeah.
no, Matt and I actually had a conversation about going to Ukraine as well.
Hmm.
So what you're saying it resonates very much with me because I'm very much the same. I'm very much
Mm.
that I want to do right by the world and I want to like,
Yeah.
like I said, one of the things we do is we have a prayer session for the world. So
Yeah.
we pray, we put energy into the world and talk about what's going on that week and try and somehow energetically combat it,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's not a lot we can do sitting at our chairs, but we can do more than just nothing.
Oh,
And so
you can do
I
so
feel
much
like,
more energetically
yeah,
than you can do in the physical.
well, that's kind of what I'm getting at is that,
Mm.
whether we are or we're not, we're making ourselves feel better. But I do feel like we're not the only ones doing this. And I feel like in time, these little collectives will become one big collective.
Oh.
Like I have a project at the moment which
Hmm.
I'm looking into, which is in Queensland. There's some land that they're basically giving away if you can provide 25% like food or growth and sell it basically, and
Yeah.
they will give you the land, and then you can do whatever you want with it. So what I
Oh,
want to do
wow.
is get this and have someone basically manage it
Mm.
so that there is a place for people to go and
Oh man, you're
it's
talking my language.
it's like a spiritual community, just somewhere
Yeah.
people can go and they give back and they do what they need to do. They need a break, whatever it may be, and it's somewhere that it's just a special little place that you know. So that's something I'm trying to do so that like if we need to get together on a bigger scale and be together and do energetic work,
Mm-mm-mm.
we can all meet there, and it's you
Mm.
know we eventually build some lodges there so that there's places to stay and it's all
Yeah.
self-contained. But yeah, so I'm looking into that. That's a project, a side project I've got
Yeah.
going.
That's one
Um,
thing I've wanted to do in the future is do
yeah,
land rehabilitation. So buy
yes,
land
yes,
and then
and
rehabilitate it and make my own national parks and things like that.
yeah, and I think that'll come. I think that'll come naturally because
Hmm.
I do believe that like world news is I'm big on as well.
Mm.
Like China's taken over the East Coast.
Mm.
It's well known, but I truly believe that that will change. I truly believe
Oh yeah.
that um I believe it's very much the Aboriginals' time. I believe it's the native Australians' time
Yeah.
to come back.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I believe that you and I are going to be the people that help them.
Oh,
So when
definitely.
you talk about being a shaman
Hmm.
like me, I think you're very much like me. If you're a shaman, you're a shaman. And so for me, I was a shaman in past lives. I know that I've been a American Indian shaman. I
Mm.
know that I've been in Nepal or somewhere like that as a
Mm.
shaman, and I know now that I am to work shamanistically with the land and Aboriginals.
Yeah.
So even though my shamanism has changed in lifetimes,
Hmm.
'cause when I started my journey, I was very much drawn to like um, the Apache and the Indians,
Yeah.
the American Indians,
Yeah.
but I was drawn to it like you were drawn to war because I'd been
Mm.
there before.
Mm.
And so what I'm learning now is, and I've been getting so many messages, is that now my time is to learn the Aboriginal
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, yeah,
Now,
definitely.
Aboriginals don't let you into their circle, and I'm being led into circles here, there, and everywhere. So
Yeah, yeah.
they know.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like you would have experienced this as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I believe that. I don't believe it's going to happen anytime soon. I see it like it's 20 years because it's got to get worse before it gets better. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
of bad stuff that's happening with mining.
Hmm.
And West Australia, people don't realize what's going on over here. And I feel like that's why I'm here. Like
Mm.
I have tried to leave WA at least 20 times.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I have tried to leave Western Australia so many times and I cannot leave. Like I don't know why. And now I've fucking bought a house here.
Yeah, yeah,
My partner and I were moving to Queensland. I sold my successful business to move to We were moving,
yeah.
and somehow I've now bought a house in Perth. So
Yeah.
I know that my journey is to be here.
Yeah.
Um, what's crazy is that in that I have found where I grew up. So Perth is very young.
Mm.
Perth only started in like the 50s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What I've learned so far is where I grew up, the World War II guys came back and their job was to create pine trees. So they
Mm.
planted pine trees in the 1920s. In the 1960s,
Mm.
there you got that cough.
Yeah.
That was wartime. That was wartime.
Yeah.
Um, in the 1960s, they started to clear the land. Sorry, 1970s, they started to clear the land to develop.
Yeah.
Now, in the 1950s, there was a pig farm and a
Hmm.
winery and Italian mafia.
Yeah, right.
Now, what I I haven't what my research has found is that some dark shit happened in this area.
Mm.
Now, I've spoken to the lady who is a expert on the area, and
Yeah.
she's an expert up until 1969.
Yeah, right.
So I said to her, "Did you know about the pig farm?" She goes, "What pig farm?" I said, "The pig farm that lived there." Anyway, I have put that on hold, but the long and the
Hmm.
short of it is there is so many things that draw me here.
Hmm.
And recently, um, this is yeah. Sorry, my brain's going into overdrive.
No, that's okay.
You know the Luigi Mangione guy
No.
that in America probably about a month ago, the CEO got
Oh,
shot
yeah,
from a
yeah,
golf.
yeah.
That guy's name was Luigi Mangione.
Yeah, right.
My grandfather's last name is Mangione.
Oh, wow.
My my grandfather is also in the mafia.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm related to this Mangione guy, but
Yeah.
what the universe had to make that happen for me to see what the fuck is going on here, to see how
Mm.
global my family has done a disservice to the world.
Yeah.
Mafia.
Hmm.
So I'm literally like rock by rock breaking up West Australia. And I've
Mm.
only started in this small little spot.
Hmm.
But West Australia's got so many, like Adelaide has got so many hidden things that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where what I'm doing here, and
Hmm.
it's why I haven't been able to leave. It's really fucking weird. But anyway, I just got off
Mm.
track with that whole shaman thing. But that's going back to being a shaman. That's where it's like the land keeps drawing me to certain places.
Yeah. And the
So
energy in those
yeah,
places.
yeah. So to finish off that whole conversation, I started a new business, and guess
Mm.
where the fuck that business is?
Where?
Same place I grew up.
Where's that?
I tried. So I grew up in a place called Murdoch.
Yeah.
Murdoch, Winthrop, and Cardinia, all they're like a triangle. They all touch
Yeah.
each other. So they're all in the city of Melville. Now,
Yeah.
this is where the piggery was and
Hmm.
the winery and all the mafia stuff happened. Okay.
Yeah.
So I grew up there,
Hmm.
right? And growing up, I used to ride my bike around and I would just have bad feelings in this area. But I
Yeah.
didn't know what it was,
Yeah.
right? And then bad shit happened to me in that area.
Hmm.
And then I left and didn't, you know, when I reopened my salon, I looked for rental spaces and I looked for months and months and months and
Mm.
months. One day we randomly go to this little shopping place in Winthrop, which is the only one in the three
Yeah.
suburbs, and there's a for lease sign.
Yeah, right.
It's nowhere on the internet because I Google it right there and then can't find it. So I call the guy and I say, "Is this place for lease?" And he goes, "Yeah, it is." So the universe put me back
Yeah.
where I needed to be, and now I'm learning from my clients that have lived in the area
Mm.
things about the area. So it's almost like I've been put back to square one,
Mm.
as in to go like, you've got work to do here.
Oh yeah.
It's really, it's trippy. It's just when you were talking about shamanism
Oh
and being
man.
shaman.
Like,
It's
don't get me
like,
wrong, I feel the same to an extent where it's sort of like certain places like I'm drawn to and pulled to and things like that. For me, shamanism is, especially with what I do with it, it's about understanding how to connect with and talk with like your
yes.
ancestors, everyone who's passed, to the trees. Like, it's not that I physically can do it, but like when I look at a tree, I see the ancestors that inhabit it. Do you know
No,
what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I do know
But
what you
it's like
mean.
seeing through feeling and knowing.
Um, Huh, funny. Yeah, no, I do know exactly what you mean. Weird you bring that up because last week there was a little bushfire where I've got a couple of trees that I go and speak to,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it was a bushfire there. And I was asleep, I was having a nap, and I woke up just screaming, like screaming, right?
Yeah.
I woke up and I was like, something's wrong, something's wrong. And I go outside and there's water bombers circling. And so
Wow.
I just have this instinct to walk down to the trees, and the police stop me and they're like, you can't go any further. That those trees are on fire. And I'm like, my
Oh
trees
no.
are on fire. What the fuck? So I
Really?
haven't been down there. I've got to go down there and find out what the hell happened. But
Mm.
that being said, they've caught a firebug who lit the fire.
Yeah.
Now, what a coincidence that this woman lit a tree that is quite special to me. Like it is all very coincidental, to
Oh yeah.
say the least.
And it's
And
sort of like how, like, yeah,
how
it's
did she
crazy
know?
why people do that as well.
Well, I believe, like you and me,
Mm.
we have these gifts and we lean into them. I
Mm.
believe people like her, and I've met people like this through
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, especially, which is a very dark place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've met people that use their gifts for evil.
Yep.
So I know this sounds really egotistical and far-fetched, but it wouldn't put it past me that that person who lit those fires somehow followed me on TikTok and my
Mm.
TikTok lives and has gone, I'm going to go and do that to his tree. And
Yeah.
somehow, because I feel like that's where we're at, spiritual war, as far as spiritual war is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, okay. Spirits are saying yes to that one.
Yeah.
Um,
And it can also be that like us, she may be guided.
well, that's what I'm saying to you. I feel
Mm.
like she was guided by evil.
Mm-hmm. To try and
Or
break you.
correct. It's not
Mm-hmm.
going to break me because I'm just going to
No,
love that tree more. But
exactly.
that was the point I'm bringing up. Like you and I sit here, and I'm glad that you're aware that there's the other side, which
Oh
is
yeah.
people using it for evil, and they're doing like a girlfriend of mine, Sophia, and I, we chat like this a lot,
Mm.
and every time we do, there's a fly that comes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know who the fuck it is, but we know someone's remote viewing.
Yeah.
We know it's somebody because it's the only time this fly ever turns up.
Mm-hmm.
How the fuck do they know that we're on the phone together? I don't know. But every time we get on the phone, so now we've had to sort of like,
Like someone's in your energy.
literally. And so we've
Mm,
had so again, as a collective, we started doing different things and praying for each other and gritting and all these things to protect. And like
mm.
I think that's why I wanted to connect with you as well. I felt like you needed to have that connection with other people to protect you because you're so vulnerable in that you want to give all your love, but you need to
Oh
protect.
yeah.
Feel like you need to be told that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah. But to an extent, like so like I used to um be a bit like that in the sense that I used to try and be protected. But it's sort of like one of the things I realized is like in ancient times and past lives, I am a berserker. So
hmm
I don't like I don't
Yeah.
need to sort of, so to speak, fear other people because like
No, no,
my
no.
my
We
my
never
trust
fear.
and belief in God is what shields me or in my ancestors in life. And it's
But
sort of like mm,
do you not think that now we're in a place? This is exactly where we debate.
mm,
'Cause I've got a few people that sit on the fence where you are, but
mm,
I feel like I agree with you,
mhm.
and I see your point, and I go, we are now. But like I feel like there are things that we are learning now to this day that our ancestors never knew. So, in that sense, like for example, the internet,
Mhm.
I feel like evil is also getting an upgrade. And so there's things that we may not know so
Yeah,
much. So, in a sense, do we overprotect ourselves to make sure, like, so for example, that fly, I could just let it be, or I could
yeah.
overprotect myself.
See,
That's where,
that's where I get to is sort of like I can seek to protect myself, but I'm giving in to fear, so to speak. And it's sort of like how I do it is
are you giving into
I
fear?
oh man. So like as I say to God, as I say to the devil, like should you send the devil against me? The devil will meet the fucking devil.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Do you think it's not about, I'm not scared.
No,
I'm not scared. Like these people can come and attack me.
yeah.
What I'm saying is I've got so much work
Energetically.
to do. Yeah, energetically, I've got so much work to do.
Mm.
I don't want to be bothered by this bullshit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a fucking hardcore fence of energy to go, you know what?
Hmm.
Don't even come near me. You
Yeah.
don't even penetrate here. That's what my collective and I have kind of come
Yeah,
to is
yeah.
like
So it's sort of
what
like
we what
how I think about it is that like within me projects out an energy that shields me from all. Do you know what I
yes.
mean? Like my
Well, I suppose what
spirit.
I'm saying is
Mm.
I suppose what I'm saying is like one big thing that we always remind each other is to do our spiritual laundry. It's like a thing we've come
Hmm.
up with, which is like, make sure we pray, make sure we um put up our barriers, on
Yeah.
a daily basis, make sure we connect. That's what I mean by 30 years ago, you didn't need to so much do that on a maybe daily or weekly basis.
Mm.
Whereas now I feel like we have to be practicing at our utmost and be so um what do you call it? Like almost regimented with it
Yeah.
to keep ourselves protected and healthy. It's like
Oh yeah.
eating or
Hmm.
so there's nothing about fear in any of that. It's more a
No.
case of I see us. I mean, I'm not scared because I know we're going to win. We'll always will win. Good will
Yeah.
always win. But I look at right now and the situation we're in, and I go,
Mm.
"Yeah, these evils are finding new ways to creep in.
Hmm.
So do we need to just extra protect ourselves in a sense? Like
Yeah, yeah. So to speak.
that's
So
where I
like
say, yeah,
whenever I feel that way, like for example, if I feel like my energy is being drained or I'm aggressive or angry, like I just talk to the ancestors. I talk to God. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. See,
It's sort of like,
whereas I feel like I don't
mm,
get to that place anymore. which is great
Yeah.
because I have this energetic field up around me. And when
Mm,
it does get penetrated, I go, alarm bells go off and I go, okay, this is something serious. I need to be really aware of this.
mm,
So like
most
this fly,
definitely.
when I talk about this fly, I talk about it because that's the only thing that's penetrated me in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And I've worked out what it is now. And now
Hmm.
I've sent it back and it hasn't been back since.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's where I say to you, it's not about being fearful. I was never fearful of this fly.
No.
It was more a case of who the fuck are you and what do you want to know and why are you here?
Hmm.
That was my thing. And it was the same thing with Sophia. She was like, what the fuck? And then when we worked
Mm,
it out, we were like, okay. So together we sent it back and we were like, right, we're going to put an extra bit of wall up against this person. We're also going to send that to our spiritual friends and loved ones. So
mm,
that ultimately, and this is what I'm kind of trying to get at, is like
mm,
now we do things on a bigger scale. So like we sent that out into our spiritual world in Australia and said, protect everyone we know, don't
mm,
let this person come into their field. So now everyone is protected in a way,
hmm.
um, with the acceptance that they allow us to do it, so
Yeah.
that this person's not going to be able to interject. Now we've seen this person go in and do nasty things to a few people, so it's
Hmm.
like something that this person keeps doing over and over again. And you
Yeah.
can see I'm not saying who this person is, or I'm not
No,
talking in a bad way because that's not what I do.
but don't give
But
them power either.
correct.
Mm.
Um, and this person is now no longer in anyone's field because it's getting blocked out every way, shape, or form.
Oh, definitely.
That's what I talk about. I suppose that's my word at the moment is telling people. I suppose I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, just protect yourself.
Oh, definitely. But like, sort of like I
Beware.
mentioned, like my path in life is always to be the beacon for the enemy to charge. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's sort of
I
like
do.
if there's anyone to attack, like I call them to attack me. Because
And
like,
I suppose the empath in me doesn't like that.
well, see, the thing is when you see me, you see Justin. You don't
Yeah.
see Legion. You don't see the ancestors that stand behind me. That at any point in time, should I require, I can let them take over. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
No, I do. I do.
It's sort of
I do.
like I have an army behind me, so to speak, that you cannot see, but I can feel them. They are
Oh
always
yeah, we
with
all
me. They
do.
are because like I so to speak, I pray to the diggers, all of the soldiers past, from World War I, World War II, and past. They are who I call to stand with me, but they are who I fight for. My
Yeah,
ancestors and
yeah.
all the warriors. So it's sort of like when and like if people try to, for example, use negative energy against me, it's sort of like I could put a shield up and try and protect myself, but it's also like I let them because their
Yeah.
negative energy will be diminished by those who stand behind me. Do you know what
But
I
just
mean?
be but just be aware that like you can only punch something so many times before it breaks.
Oh
So you've got
yeah.
to keep like as long as you're keeping up with your, like I say, spiritual laundry,
Yeah.
which obviously you are,
Oh
and you're
yeah.
connecting with your ancestors and all that, and that's all it is making sure that you're like not lacking in
Well, making sure you're always
connecting.
connected to the
Correct.
spiritual. Yeah.
Correct. Making sure you're connected, and if you need to, like for me, I use crystals as an example. Crystals to me are just they are
Hmm.
ornamental, um, but with intention, they can
Hold
protect.
energy, hold power, hold
You can.
intention.
And so generally, I don't use crystals on an everyday basis,
Hmm.
but I'll use them when they're necessary.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And so, like, that's, yeah, just yeah, I don't know. I'm
It's
just
it's
rambling
a
now.
it's a hard thing because it's sort of like what we're trying to explain, especially to each other, are these sort of like these conceptualizations where I see and feel what I'm
Mm,
saying, but it's sort of like trying to explain it into the material is like trying
But
to take something that is non-physical and give it
and
physical descriptions.
100%. But
Mm.
but the thing is I understand what you're saying.
Mm.
I know exactly what you're saying because feel and do the same. Like
Yep.
I've got my army behind me,
Yeah.
but I'm also aware of other things around us. And I don't know. It's just I don't even know what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
I think
it's
it's just
crazy. It's sort of like
it's
I've always known throughout all of life that
oh shit, it's nearly 10 o'clock. I
yeah,
got to run soon because I got to go to a
yeah.
doctor's appointment. But
No, that's easy. But like I've always known all throughout life that there is nothing that can defeat me. As I crumble, I am rebuilt reborn like a phoenix. As the
yeah, yeah,
foundation of me is burnt, it is reborn stronger. And that's sort of
it
what my
is.
ancestors tell me is like to never fear anything for no matter the worst thing in the world that I think could happen to me, it will only ever make me stronger.
No, we never fear. We never fear. I never
No,
fear.
because
It's
fearing gives in to the, so to speak, the
correct.
darkness.
Correct.
Like, because we then self-doubt ourselves.
Well, exactly.
Mm,
And if you want to bring it into the 3D world, that's where depression and anxiety comes from, is that fear.
yep,
So once you get that fear out of your head, yeah.
yep, yeah. That's awesome. This has been an awesome
Ah,
chat, but man.
it has. It has. We'll have to reconnect.
Oh, we'll have to do one with the group. Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would love to do one where we talk about a lot of this spiritual stuff and go through it and
Well,
do all of those.
let me organize. Let me find out when they're all available, and I'll get back to you, and we'll do a big. Well, I think we've. I don't even know if we've still got a group chat, but I'll start a new group chat, and I'll add you in, and yeah.
Awesome. I look
All right,
forward
man.
to
I
it.
gotta run.
All
It's
right, cheers, my
lovely
man.
chatting to you. You
No
have a
worries.
great day.
Yeah, you too. See you, bro.